If you've clicked on this video, you're probably wondering whether law is right for you. And this is such a hard decision to make, especially for me. I didn't study A-level law, it wasn't an option for me, and I didn't have any connections in the legal profession, so I felt like it was pretty much a shot in the dark. I didn't really know what studying law entailed at all. I was kind of just guessing what law would be like, and also becoming a lawyer, I really didn't know the process at all, and my only kind of ideas of what being a lawyer is like is from books and TV shows. Anyway, safe to say I was pretty clueless, so if you're feeling the same way, I completely understand. But I'm going to tell you everything I wish I knew. I feel like I've now got a pretty good understanding of what studying law is like. I've done the 3 years of the law degree. I just graduated in June from Durham, but also what it's like to get into the legal profession. I am a future Magic Circle trainee. A Magic Circle firm, what that term means is it's one of the top 5 UK law firms. And there were definitely lots of shocks and surprises along the way. So yes, I'm going to tell you all the answers to all of the questions that I had when I was in sixth form, and also things that I know now that I wish I could have gone back and told my sixth form self, aka things I just didn't even have a clue about in sixth form to even cross my mind. Oh, and also for those of you who don't know me, my name is Lucy. Lots of you have come on my whole law school journey with me. I started documenting my experience from the beginning of joining Durham, and I've made videos on all my tips and tricks as I've gone along, which I'm going to continue doing through the rest of the process of becoming a lawyer, so make sure to subscribe down below if you want to come with me. But now, finally, I'm going to give you a complete rundown of everything you need to know about studying law. Okay, let's start with why I chose to study law. I feel like it's quite nice to see someone else's thought process on the thing that you're trying to decide. I studied law because I knew that I wanted to go into something politics, law-based in the future. You know, when you sit down and you choose your GCSEs and A-levels and you think, well, if I go down more of a science subject path, it normally leads you towards this kind of career. And then if I go down more the essay-based subject routes, then it normally goes towards this. I just kind of wanted to do anything towards the essay-based career path. I just knew whatever I was going to do in the future was probably going to need some sort of debating skills, being able to write persuasively, and to just have a general understanding of how the world works, and I knew that law would set me up for that. It's a bit more broader than, say, studying history or English. At the time in sixth form, I was thinking, you know, I don't want to be pigeonholed down a certain career path. There's always those stereotypes like if you study history, you're going to become a history teacher. And also, I guess law is just quite a well-respected subject. You know, when you say you study law, like people do look at you like, oh, wow. And because it's respected, it's very solid, it does have a lot of good employment prospects, whatever you decide to do. Yeah, I just knew it'd be a very solid degree to choose, and that would ultimately set me up really well for whatever I wanted to go into. So that's why I chose it. I thought I would probably enjoy the content because it seemed pretty broad, and I've always been interested in how the world works, and it seemed to be related to all of that sort of stuff. I enjoyed essay subjects at A-levels, so I went into it, but I didn't really know what it was going to cover. And that is something that I wish I had. I wish I had a little taster session of all the modules you had to be taught, because yeah, as I said, my school didn't offer A-level law, so I had no clue what it was going to be like, and didn't really have any clue if I was going to actually enjoy the degree I signed myself up for 3 years. I was paying a lot of money for. If you don't know, to get a qualifying law degree, you have to study 7 compulsory modules. So whatever university you go to, you will be taught these 7 core subjects. I'm going to give you a really basic rundown of what these compulsory modules are, and hopefully you'll get a little bit of an understanding if that sounds like something that will interest you. First up, contract law. A contract is a legally binding agreement. For example, when you get your university offer, if you accept it, then you're entering into a contract with them. They're just generally really helpful in life when you want someone to do something for you, because you have normally written down, although it doesn't have to be written, clear terms of what you want that person to do and what you're going to give them for doing that, and what happens if things go wrong. This subject looks at all the rules around contracts, what you need for a contract to be formed, anything that might invalidate a contract, what happens if someone breaches a contract, aka breaks a contract. The second compulsory module is tort law. Now, tort law encompasses a lot of different things, which means it can be quite hard to define. One of the first things you'll learn when you read your textbooks is that there's no real definition for it. Basically, what it is that we all have rights that are protected by law. If you harm my rights, then you need to compensate me for that. So for instance, if I get injured because you haven't given me the right work equipment, or for example, if I own a house, I have rights to my land. If you trespass on my land, you're hurting my rights. You've got to compensate me for that. Yeah, so it looks at what happens when someone harms you, either physically or your rights to other things like your land. Famous case here, the one you'll hear everyone talk about, probably in the top 5 most well-known cases for law students, is Donahue v Stevenson. This is where Mrs. Donahue drank a ginger beer, but she didn't realise that there was a snail that was decomposing in it, and it made her ill. She was able to sue the manufacturer, Stevenson, because he owed her a duty of care to make sure that the product was safe, and he failed to do that, which then led to her harm. Number 3 is criminal law, and this is the one that I think most people go into their law degree thinking that they know a little bit about because it's what you see on the news, in TV shows, and I also think it's one of the ones that people look forward to because most people think they're going to like it. It sets out what is needed for a criminal offence to be committed and the punishment for it. You'll look at offences such as theft, murder, sexual offences, but then also what happens when people don't go the full way to committing the offence. Like, what if it wasn't them that committed the robbery, but they helped someone to do it? Or what if they get halfway and then someone stops them? Like, you can't charge them for burgling your house because they didn't do it, but we're very much going to if they had the opportunity. And also defences. What can the defendant say to either lessen their sentence or get them completely off? Like, what if they were acting in self-defence, or if they were under the influence of alcohol? Is this number 4, constitutional law, which was my favourite compulsory module? You'll like this if you like politics, because it's the political side of the law. It looks at the roles and power things in the state has. What can Parliament do? How does it work? What are the role of the judges? How much power does the Supreme Court have? How does devolution work with Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland having their own laws? It also looks at how you can challenge decisions of the state using judicial review, and also our human rights protection, both under the Human Rights Act, and also our compatibility and how it all works with the European Convention on Human Rights. Number 5 is EU law. Look at how the EU and EU law works, how you can use EU law if you feel like someone has breached your rights, or what you do if you want to challenge an act of EU law itself, human rights protections. The next compulsory module is trust law. This is probably the one that the majority of law students dislike the most, but it was actually one of my favourites, so don't listen to all of the negativity too much. Now, trusts are quite difficult to explain in a brief period. It's a kind of complicated subject, which is why I think a lot of people don't like it, because it does take a long time to get your head around it, but once it clicks, it does kind of just click. Okay, so a trust is a method for looking after your things, but the key thing with this is it has to have a middle person involved with the management. I think the best example to use for people our age is a trust fund, as it's what we're most likely to have heard of. With a trust fund, the parents don't just give a big lump sum of money to the child. It's not sat in their bank account, they can't access it. It's managed by someone else, and normally that child can only access their trust fund on a set of conditions. Wills are another example of a trust. In this module, you'll look at what you need to form a valid one, things that may stop a will or certain clauses in it from being valid. Trusts also play a role when you buy property. One of the common scenarios you'll look at is what happens to a property if 2 people are living there but the relationship breaks down, especially when only one of them is registered as the legal owner, the other has been making contributions towards the house. Also look at charities, because charities are often trusts. Okay, and then the final module you've got to the end is land law. It's kind of self-explanatory in the name, but it's looking at the law around land. Basically, by this I mean anything to do with property and land ownership. Like, for instance, when you rent somewhere, you sign a lease. You'll look at what makes the lease, how you create it, how you terminate it, what happens when you co-own some land, how do mortgages work, what happens if you have to walk through somebody else's land, so like what if you have to walk through the back of somebody's garden to get to your bins, or for example, what happens if your parents have said you're going to inherit some piece of land, like a farm for instance. You spend all your life working on the farm, turning down opportunities because you think that you're going to inherit it, so all this work you're putting in is going to be yours at the end, and then they turn around and say, no, actually you're not going to get it. Learn the answers to all of this in land law. And there we go, a very quick taster session into all of your compulsory modules, and hopefully you can begin to work out if these subjects will interest you. But I do have some general thoughts on whether you'll find the degree interesting. Law is a very broad subject. It covers so much. Things like trust law or contract law, they're all very logical. There's lots of different steps in a puzzle to working out if something happened, and it can also involve a lot of business and finance. A lot of the cases you look at will be based on money, and I think that's why lots of people I know end up hating their law degree, because half of your compulsory modules are like your essay subjects, and I think a lot of people who choose to study law are the type of people that are really interested in essay subjects, and so they'll get along with half of the modules because it's all the type of things they enjoy. Then the other half, and because it's half, it's a significant amount of the degree, there's a lot more logical. It's not so much maths, you don't really have to do many calculations, but it is using the other logical side of your brain, which means if you're the type of person who really enjoyed all of their GCSE subjects, probably did a broad mix of A-levels, always really struggled narrowing down what you want to focus on with your subjects because you liked everything really, then I think you'll have a really good chance of liking a law degree because it appeals to both sides of the brain. Obviously take it with a bit of a pinch of salt. This is just a general theory, which is kind of a little gauge of whether you might enjoy the degree or not. You might also be wondering what is even involved in studying law, like how do you go about studying this material? I went to Durham, and from friends that I have at other universities that are studying law, we all seem to learn it in a pretty similar way, but obviously every university will be slightly different. So have a look at the course specification and teaching methods for your universities that you're looking at. You should have them broken down on the university website, but I'll give you a general overview of how law is taught. The course material is taught both by lectures and seminars. Although some people call seminars tutorials, we had both seminars and tutorials at Durham. The difference was just that seminars were bigger, they would be like 20-30 people, whereas tutorials would be 10 and under. Think of lectures as an overview of a topic. They're held in big venues with the entirety of your course. The lecturer at the front stands and just talks at you about what you need to know. They give you an introduction to the topic, and then you go away and you self-teach yourself all the real details. You do the readings. And as I think is commonly known about law, there is a lot of readings involved. And seminars are like the end consolidation of a topic. It's where you check your understanding of everything you've learned. You have to do the readings beforehand, and then there will also be questions that you have to prepare the answers to as well before. Then it's a small class-based discussion with your tutorial leader, they'll either say, what do people think about this question, and wait for people to put their hands up, and then someone will say something, and then someone else will put their hand up and say something else, and you can get into a bit of a debate. Or they might do more of a cold call where they'll be like, so Lucy, what do you think on this? And I'll be like, interesting. Tom, do you have anything to say back to Lucy? That sort of stuff. And then in some tutorials you have to give presentations. It can be very different, but basically you just have to come and be able to discuss all the material you've learned. And then the course is assessed the majority of the time through 2 different styles of essays. The first essay is more of an argumentative essay. Like the long essays you will have to have done in your A-level subjects, they'll ask something like, the law on X is too uncertain, discuss. And you have to form an answer to that question, and through your essay try and persuade the reader onto your argument. And then the second type of essay is called a problem question. This is where they'll give you a big scenario and you will have to apply all of the law that you've learned to these facts to try and work out what will happen, the answers to the issues. Now I want to talk a little bit about things that you should be aware of before you start studying a law degree. The first thing is just that some universities require you to sit an entrance exam. It's called the LNAT. It's a 2-hour, 15-minute exam. The first part is a multiple choice section designed to test how you think, and the second part is an essay. It costs £75. You register for it online and you go and sit it in a test centre. I sat it where I sat my drive-in theory test at unis like Oxbridge, my uni, Durham, King's, Bristol, which are very popular universities for law. They all rank highly in the law league tables. They all ask for it. A big point that I also want to flag here is that you do not need to study law to be a lawyer. I think a lot of people study law because they have the overall goal of being a lawyer, because the way that I used to think about it in 6th form is I knew that there was the thing called the GDL, the law conversion, which means my year 12 thinking was, oh, you need a qualifying law degree to be a lawyer, which is why the law conversion exists. So then I thought, well, that means that a law degree is all you need to be a lawyer. And I mean, the name's kind of confusing in itself, a qualifying law degree. I thought I would qualify after getting that law degree. But this is actually so wrong. A law degree is just the first step in the process to becoming a lawyer. I remember sitting and hearing everyone who wanted to be a doctor or an architect and thinking, that's just crazy, 7 years to study something. Not realising that it's practically the exact same thing for law. To become a qualified solicitor after your law degree, you then have to do a further set of exams. It's called the Solicitor's Qualifying Examinations. This takes about a year. And then you need 2 years of qualifying work experience, meaning the process to qualify as a solicitor from law degree to qualification is 6 years. And to be a barrister, you need to do the BPTC, pupillage, and then you have to be called to the bar. And then a question that I always get asked is, should I study law or another subject that I like? I think if you know that you want to be a lawyer, the big question is just, do you want to add on an extra year? Not just the time aspect, it's also the money. Postgraduate loans themselves aren't actually that big. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that you can only get funding for 1 master's. If you do another subject, you're also going to have to fund the SQE and the GDL. You can do both of these as master's courses to get funding, but if you've also done the GDL as a master's to get the funding, that you can't get the funding for the SQE. I don't want any of you to be sat here thinking, I can't fund all of this, I don't want all these loans. A lot of people do self-fund, but there are other alternatives. For instance, I'm not paying anything for my SQE, and that's because if you get a training contract, you can get your firm to sponsor you through the process. They pay for both the law school fees and they also give you a grant to live off of. But these are really competitive, so you cannot rely on getting them. It can take people several years to get them, so especially you can't just rely on being able to walk straight out of university with them. The competitiveness of getting training contracts kind of leads me just broadly on to touch the subject of how competitive it is to get into law. I think at 6th form it's quite well known that law is a competitive degree, so you're probably a little nervous about getting into the universities that you want to get into, but I will say that getting a job at a law firm is even more competitive than this, because you're not just competing with people who are studying law, but you're also competing with people from all the other degrees, and you're not just competing with people from your year. It can take people years to secure a law job, so that means that they go through the application cycle year after year, meaning people 3, 4, 5 years older than you may be applying for the same position that you want, which means there is just a lot of applicants for very few spots. And this isn't to put you off, I just want to flag it. I was definitely very stressed because everyone told me how hard it was to get a training contract, but I got multiple training contract offers from the Magic Circle firms, so 2 of the top 5 UK law firms gave me an offer in my 2nd year of university and my 1st year of applying to law firms. So it's not impossible, people do it, and I will share all my tips and tricks on doing one in applications, so make sure you subscribe for that. I did just want to make you aware that getting a grad job can be difficult. It isn't going to just be handed to you at the end of university. To help you stand out in a competitive application process is not so much about the grades that you get in your degree. Most firms will just ask for a 2-1 and it really is a tick box exercise. Instead, you stand out by the things that you do outside of your law degree. They care way more about your work experience section. So in your 1st year, you also need to go to talks, insight days, networking events at law firms, and writing strong applications take a lot of time and effort. I know I dedicated a day to each of my training contract and vacation scheme applications in 2nd second year. Law is such a content heavy subject, it meant I had to be really good at my time management to get everything done, because I was taking a day out of my week from focusing on my degree. Basically, just be ready and prepared that if your ultimate goal going into studying your law degree is to become a lawyer, there is a lot you will need to do outside of the degree. And that is everything I think you pretty much need to know about studying law. If you have any questions, please leave them down below and I will get back to you. Really appreciate if you could give it a like if you found it helpful, and also subscribe. I'm going to post all my tips on doing well at law, both doing well at your applications and also at your law degree, so you're not going to want to miss that.